Hi, and welcome back to Ghosties. I'm Macy.
And I'm Natalie.
And today we're talking about the events that inspired the wildly popular book and even more popular movie, The Exorcist.
Oh, guess what?
What?
Never seen it.
No.
I know.
That's like OG horror movie.
I know. I've seen them all except that one.
Okay, you're going to have to watch it after today's episode
No,
then.
get this. I haven't seen The Exorcist or Psycho.
Really?
Really. Because I wanted to watch Psycho the other day, and I told Ryan, I was like, let's watch it. And we started it, and it's an older movie, and immediately he's like, boo, lost interest. So I'm like, and I'm afraid to watch it
If it's
alone.
before the year of 2005, it's not anything good to him.
Literally. if it predates Transformers, he's not watching it.
Well, I'm shocked that you haven't seen The Exorcist.
Oh, yeah. No, because
Have
I'm
you
afraid.
read the book? No?
No, because I'm afraid to watch them by myself, so I have to like...
I'll watch it with you.
Okay.
I'll
Both
watch
of them?
Exorcist, yes. Psycho, maybe.
Why?
Psycho really freaked me out.
That's what I've heard. Like, it's like that girl of scary movies. And like, I don't want to watch it by myself.
I'll watch it with you. Whatever. What the heck?
Okay.
The Exorcist is a story so frightening that it incited immense fear in the hearts of most people who saw the movie when it came out, including our Mimi.
Yeah.
She said that movie really, really scared her.
I've heard. Because when did it come out?
73.
I was about to say in the 70s, right? And like, that was like so different in that time.
It
like,
was.
My God.
It changed movies,
Cinema.
really.
Yeah.
Exorcisms always freak me out quite a bit, and that's one of the reasons why we haven't really done any. I think we did one at the very beginning,
Yeah.
and it's mostly because I'm scared.
Well,
So-
I like to be scared on these episodes.
and I had a hard time working on this one. I know I told you this, or I think I told you this. The only time I really have to work on Ghosties, period, is at night after my kids go to bed. So I would start doing my research and reading through all of it, and I'm like, nope. I have to close the computer and try to wake up early the next day and get into it because, yeah. So it took me a little while to do this one because I was scared.
Yeah, I know. I'm really excited. I don't think I've been like truly scared in a minute. I feel like we came in hot at the beginning with like scary stuff.
Ding.
And then kind of like dwindled, and then we'd have like, oh, one scary, and then it's like research and then scary.
Yeah, I
I'm
needed
ready to
that
be
for my
scared.
own sanity and my own safety.
True. Because I feel like you used to leave my house and we'd be like, ah, and you'd run to your car, and then I'd run back in the house. But now I'm just kind of like chilling.
Well, I'm still a little freaked out on my drive home.
Yeah.
I always feel like there's something in my backseat.
And
There's
never
not.
is.
No. Without further ado, the tea we have this week is a chai latte. It was a chai concentrate from Republic of Tea. It's the first latte we've had on the show. First latte Natalie's had.
Ooh.
Ever.
Yep.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I loved it. But I also really love chai lattes. That's like my go-to. If I'm at a coffee shop or something, I get a chai latte,
I did not.
which is very sad.
But I feel like I don't like a lot of things. Like, I like chai tea a lot. Like,
I thought you would love this.
Yeah, I did too. And
I was honestly excited. I was like, oh, Natalie's going to like this.
yeah, and like, I'm a milk fan. Shoot me. I do like milk. I will drink a glass of milk. I don't care. I mean, not just like with dinner, but like sometimes I might pour one up. But I didn't like it.
I'm disappointed.
It's weird.
To the highest degree. But okay, moving on from my disappointment and
Sorry.
hopefully to scaring you.
I'm ready.
In the summer of 1949, the Washington Post published an article titled Priest Frees Mount Rainier Boy Reported Held in Devil's Grip. It was an interesting piece describing the events that unfolded earlier that year. It shocked readers. Though the act of exorcism had been around for centuries, it wasn't something commonly spoke about in America at the time. It was even more frightening to some, seeing as it happened to a young boy, and the events were corroborated by several clergymen. The boy and his family remained anonymous, but it is thought that the family's Lutheran minister was the main source for these reports stirring up talks of the devil in Maryland. One report claimed that there were a total of 48 witnesses to the demonic possession and subsequent exorcism that spanned from Maryland to St. Louis.
48.
48 people, including family and friends and priests
Okay.
and helpers and
I'm
everything.
about to say, I'm just imagining everybody like, gather around.
Come to the town square.
Yeah.
No. It
Okay.
wasn't like that. A fact that remains even more compelling is that one of the priests responsible for the exorcism of the boy, who was later referred to as Roland Doe or Robbie Mannheim, that's his alias.
Robbie Mannheim?
Yeah, that's just a name they came up for him. Anyway, the priest kept a diary of the events as they were happening, detailing the reasoning behind the Catholic Church's decision to perform an exorcism on the child, which I got most of the details from that diary.
How old was he?
He was 14. Before he passed in 2013, one of the final remaining witnesses to the events, Father Halloran, stated after being asked if he believed the young boy was actually demonically possessed, "I can't go on record. I never made an absolute statement about the things because I didn't feel I was qualified." So he saw some things, but didn't feel qualified to quite say that he was. But after going through the events and listening to what some of the witnesses had to say about the boy and the exorcism, I'll let you decide if you remain a skeptic.
I mean, that sounds like something someone that did see something would say. That doesn't sound like... Because, I hate when people are like, when you ask a question and they're like, I can't confirm or deny. So you're confirming.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Because if it was absolutely no, you'd say absolutely no. But
I feel like he would have said absolutely yes. I'm not sure. I believe it.
I do too.
But I'm a believer of most things, so.
You are.
Roland Doe was born in 1935 to a German family living in Cottage City, Maryland. Earlier reports on the exorcism placed him in Mount Rainier, but I believe this may have been an attempt to keep his identity a secret. He was baptized at 6 months old in a Lutheran church and raised as an only child in a house with his mother, father, and grandmother. His identity had been revealed many years after his exorcisms, and some of his former classmates were interviewed, describing him as a normal, very studious kid with a normal family.
Wait, so how did people not know? How were they able to keep his identity a secret? It's like the Hannah Montana movie where she's like, shh, don't tell anybody.
I think the people in his town who knew about him and knew what he was going through knew.
Yeah.
But it's not like they were like...
running to the press.
Yeah. Shouting out loud about it.
That's shocking. I don't know. I just feel like most of the time people kind of suck and they're like, oh, let me tell everybody.
Yeah. Well, and some of them might not have believed it. Might have thought that he was just troubled.
Okay, true.
They were a fairly close family, and Roland was reported as being particularly close with his Aunt Tilly, though some sources say her name was Harriet, so I'm not entirely sure exactly where they got those.
Very different names on the name scale.
But I'll keep her as Aunt Tilly. His connection with Aunt Tilly is what is believed to be the start of the events that led to Roland becoming possessed. Aunt Tilly lived in St. Louis and had an interest in spiritualism and ascertaining what happens to us after we die. She often used spirit boards in an attempt to commune with the dead to get answers to her questions. When she'd come to Maryland to visit, she taught Roland how to use a Ouija board, and they would use them together from time to time.
Oh no, it all comes back to the Ouija board.
It really does.
Was that not our first episode?
It was one of them.
What was our very first episode?
Exorcisms, and I think our second episode or third episode was Ouija boards, yeah.
It all comes back to that. It's all coming back.
I think that's why I think that's why we started with it, because it's pivotal.
Yeah.
To know that information before you're getting into this.
Sorry, real quick side tangent. There's this woman on TikTok that has her house is just like full of like odd things, and she collects.
Yes. And she has like a wall of Ouija boards.
Is it wrong with her?
I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it, especially because they're like, some of them are antiques. So who knows what is attached to those?
Who knows? And she had like a something made out of someone's hair.
Oh yeah, like art. That was I don't know where I saw this, but it was commonplace to use deceased hair in things, like put it in like a shadow box and stuff.
Yeah, and like their teeth too,
and like with a photo of them and stuff. Yeah.
I feel so weird about things like that when like body parts or like pieces of the person are left behind, and like we can see it now, because like that was a whole person. They had a whole life.
Now I think it's kind of nice.
It's nice
to like they're keeping their memory.
I'm not saying like it's weird like for someone to have it, whatever. I'm saying it's weird for me to wrap my brain around that, like, this is part of a person that is not here and nobody knows who this person is anymore. They just existed at one period of time and now they're gone. There are some things in this world that, like, it's so big, and in my brain it gets so big and I can't
grasp it.
Yes. Firmly grasp it. I can't. And it's so...
That's like the majority of what we talk about for me.
Yeah.
It feels so big and so out of this world that it's hard to, especially because we don't have answers.
That's okay. So yours is that with the paranormal. Mine is that with people, like people walking around the earth. I'm like,
sometimes it's weird for me to think like you have an entire life. You're not just an NPC,
dude.
Like you're not just a character in my game of life.
There have been times where I'm like driving down the road and I look around and I'm like, all these people have lives. These are not just little characters, and like, they're not just part of my little side quests. They're not just showing up.
A little mini existential crisis.
Me too. And I think the same thing about you sometimes, which now that you have kids, it's like different. I'm like, oh yeah, they fully exist. But sometimes, or before, I used to think like, so when I walk away,
I'm still there.
Everybody just stops moving.
Or at least I think I am, unless I'm a simulation. I'm AI and my brain is told that I'm still there, and I create memories to come back to tell you later.
Enough. That's
Okay, we'll
way
move on.
off.
When you get into alternate dimensions too,
No.
and that really blows my mind too.
And every time I hear anything about that, I'm like, scroll, shut up. I can't.
I also think that's a little bit spiritual, or like spirits and stuff like that. Possibly sometimes it's
the timelines overlapping.
Yeah.
In me are two wolves. Brittany Broski said that the other day on our podcast. So part of me is like, YOLO, life, whatever. I don't care if anybody remembers me. Blah, blah, blah. But the other part of me is like, one day I just won't exist and nobody will know who I am.
Yeah.
It's that like TikTok sound. It's like the
You don't know me, but I know you.
like one day, is there gonna be a girl like way down the line that looks exactly like me and's like, my great aunt. I was gonna say grandmother, but I don't want to have kids.
I was like,
My great aunt. I look just like her.
I don't like thinking about being forgotten.
It's too much because part of my brain is like, I'm the most important person ever, and but at the end of the day,
no, just a blip on the
I am
on
but
the
a speck.
timeline. So when Aunt Tilly passed away at the age of 54 from MS, it is reported by some that Roland did what he thought was right to try and get in touch with his beloved aunt. He used a Ouija board in his grief to speak with Aunt Tilly. It is unclear as to whether or not Roland actually contacted any spirit, Aunt Tilly or otherwise, but we do know that just 2 weeks before her death, strange events began to occur around Roland.
Of course they did.
On the night of January 15th, 1949, 14-year-old Roland was at his home in Cottage City, Maryland, sitting in his grandmother's room when the two of them began to hear a dripping noise coming from within the walls of the bedroom. It carried on for some time when suddenly all noise ceased and the photo of Christ that his grandmother had hanging on her wall began to shake, as if something had bumped into it. They were both a little spooked, and by the time Roland's parents returned home, a loud scratching sound was coming from the floorboards near his grandmother's bed. They couldn't find a source for the scratching, and it continued from 7 p.m. to midnight every night for the next 10 nights in a row. The family just assumed it was a mouse on the floor and called an exterminator, who placed chemicals in the walls and floors in an attempt to get rid of the problem. No mice were ever found, and the scratching continued, sometimes getting worse when anyone tried to stomp on the floors to get the noise to stop.
I feel like they're like coming from below to get her. That's really scary.
It's like Drag Me to Hell.
Yes. Everything in my life comes back to that movie. and
Your
that moment.
trauma.
Yes.
The family believed that their mouse problem was gone when on the 11th, 12th, and 13th night, they no longer heard the noises coming from the walls or the floors, though Roland still claimed to be able to hear it. On the 14th night, and the night of Aunt Tilly's death, the sounds began again for the entire family, and this time they were heard downstairs in Roland's bedroom. For the next 6 nights, Roland heard what sounded like squeaking shoes walking the length of his bed beside him on the floor. The footsteps squeaking and scraping along the floorboards.
What?
Roland, his mother, and his grandmother would all lay in Roland's room listening to the sounds of scraping, scratching, and dripping with nobody around to be making that noise. As they began to drift off to sleep, still hoping it was a rodent of some kind, the 3 of them heard what sounded like marching feet and the beating of drums walking back and forth the length of the mattress again and again. Frightened, Roland's mother said aloud, "Is that you, Aunt Tilly? If you are Tilly, knock 3 times. There was no response at first until the 3 of them felt a wave of air rush by and then 3 loud bangs coming from the floorboards.
Okay. Why? The 3 knocks?
Well, it's always 3.
I know.
They were shocked, but Roland's mother asked once more, "If you are Tilly, tell me positively by knocking 4 times. And 4 knocks came from the floorboards at once, followed by the sound and feeling of a claw scraping against the bottom of the mattress.
Oh my God.
Roland was very obviously horrified, but his mother and grandmother thought nothing of the mattress scratching. That is, until the bed began to shake violently. Roland dealt with night after night of a shaking bed and scratching against his mattress. It makes me think of the knocking under my mattress.
I know.
I think that's one of the reasons it really resonated with me.
I literally was
the vulnerability of the bed.
I was literally just kind of like zoned out thinking about that. As soon as you started saying like the bed shaking, I was like, that happened to you. Oh God. And it was scaring me.
Awful. It's horrifying. His bed wasn't the only thing that would shake or move with Roland inside. One classmate of his said in an interview in 1998, "We were in 8th grade. It was the 48-49 school year, and we were in a class together at Bladensburg Junior High. He was sitting in a chair, and it was one of those deals with one arm attached, and it looked like he was shaking the desk. The desk was shaking and vibrating extremely fast, and I remember the teacher yelling at him to stop it. And I remember he kind of yelled, "I'm not doing it." And they took him out of class, and that was the last I ever saw of him in school. I don't know if he was doing it or what was doing it, but I just can't clear it in my mind.
What? That reminds me. Oh, you haven't seen Hereditary. Never mind.
Nope, don't tell me.
Oh my God. There's a scene where he's like in class and it's kind of freaky. So,
Sorry.
wow.
Roland continued to experience a number of frightening events inside and outside of his home in Maryland. On one occasion, the sheet and blanket on his bed was pulled from under the mattress, its edges sticking straight up as if it were starched until someone touched the material and it fell back into place. The scratching against the mattress continued along with the shaking. Food would fly off of shelves and tables across the kitchen while Roland stood in the room. The kitchen table completely flipped over, even though Roland hadn't moved at all. While visiting a friend's home nearby, the chair he was sitting in spun around without him doing it.
He was just being attacked.
Yeah, constantly
My
almost.
God.
The Bible was thrown from a table in the living room, landing closed directly at Roland's feet across the room at one point.
The Bible. That's scary.
On February 26th of the same year, scratches began to appear on Roland's body. At first, it was just long claw marks, but after 4 consecutive nights, the scratches turned into words seemingly clawed into his body. His mother, very obviously, began to worry about Roland and contacted their local minister, Luther Scholes, who also, side note, had an interest in parapsychology at the time. He, along with another Lutheran minister and 12 other witnesses, had seen the events occurring around Roland. Thinking it could have just been the boy was working through some issues of grief since his aunt had just passed, Minister Scholes invited him to stay at his home so that he could observe the events overnight. Like maybe if they, because they slept in the same room and he kind of watched him to make sure that it wasn't something he had set up in his own bedroom.
Yeah.
To kind of get him out into a new environment and see if he was just messing with everyone.
Hmm.
And the minister witnessed the same clawing noises coming from the mattress that Roland was sleeping on in his house too.
Oh my God.
Scholes began to pray aloud, but the sounds only grew in volume. They placed Roland in a chair, tying him in a way that he wouldn't be able to make the noises himself, when the chair violently flipped over. Immediately following this night, the boy's mother and the minister contacted a physician and a psychiatrist, still thinking it could just be something wrong with Roland. So they're looking through every means possible.
Yeah, trying not to just say, witch. No, trying not to say like, it's the devil, exorcise, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
They're trying to take the steps. Okay.
Take precautions.
Yeah.
After giving him a complete exam, the physician concluded that the boy was perfectly healthy, though he could tell Roland was anxious. The psychiatrist didn't believe any of the claims coming from his mother and clergy and concluded that Roland was totally normal. The family even contacted a spiritualist, hoping that they would be able to undo anything that Aunt Tilly may have done, but there was no success, and it seemed to have only made things worse. As it usually does. I think when you've got something evil like this and you try to do something like contacting the dead or bringing in like spiritualist kind of things, it usually just kind of pisses them off.
Oh, yeah.
Having no experience with the kind of darkness that the family was experiencing, Scholes suggested they speak to a local Catholic priest. Though Father Hughes did not initially meet Roland, he suggested to his mother that they use blessed candles, holy water, and prayer to get rid of any evil that may have attached itself to the family. She did as was suggested, but objects would fly towards the candles, putting out the flames, and the bottle of holy water that his mother placed on a shelf was thrown across the room at one point. His mother attempted to hold the candles near Roland at night, but the entire bed would sway back and forth while they sat in it. And as you can imagine, prayers only agitated the darkness. This is when Father Hughes began to seek permission for an exorcism. His mother began to believe that she needed to take Roland to be with family in St. Louis, hoping the happenings wouldn't follow them there, thinking like maybe it was just to their house and not to them as a family. It was decided when one night the word Louis was written on the boy's ribs in claw marks.
Louis?
Like St. Louis?
Oh.
So she was thinking of taking him to the family in St. Louis, and then Louis appeared on his ribs.
Oh my God.
Next, when there were some questions of the time of departure, the word Saturday was written plainly on the boy's hip. As the length of time the mother and boy should stay in St. Louis, another message was printed on the boy's chest. 3.5 weeks.
What?
The printing always appeared without any motion on the part of the boy's hands. The mother was keeping him under close supervision. There seemed to be a sharp pain when the marks occurred, so that the boy would double up and utter a rather terrifying sound. The markings could not have been done by the boy for the added reason that on one occasion there was writing on his back.
What?
And that was quoted from the diary.
But why?
I don't know. And she just believed that it was whatever was bothering him was using his body to make contact, kind of like writing.
Yeah.
And she was too afraid not to listen.
But if like Because if it's a demon that doesn't want to be, like, exorcised, like, why would it say, like, oh, take him somewhere for X amount of time? Like, I don't get it.
I don't understand that well either. And that's kind of where some of the skepticism comes in.
Yeah,
because maybe he was just overhearing his mom talking to people about it, and he's like, "Oh, this will freak her out." But I don't know, like some of the placement and stuff, and it wouldn't be there 1 minute, and
no, I'm not skeptical like that he was doing it. It's just it's not making sense to me because I would think that they would want, like, the demon or whatever would want to, like, deceive or, like, you know, like say like, "Oh, don't go." Like,
I don't know exactly. Maybe it liked the challenge.
Oh, maybe.
And being around more priests.
Oh, maybe.
I'm not sure exactly, though.
I don't know. But
either way, I hate it.
Yeah, true.
The paranormal events continued to happen in St. Louis, with many people in Roland's family there to witness, all claiming there was no way for Roland to have been responsible for the continued movement of the mattress, words carved out of his flesh, or items being thrown around the rooms. The family continued to use spiritualist methods, believing whatever was causing all of this trouble must be Aunt Tilly. Even still. Which, why would Aunt Tilly be carving words into his body?
Hey, maybe she was the one trying to, like, fight and say,
like, go to St. Louis?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But I don't know.
I hope so. I like the thought that Aunt Tilly was, like, also battling spiritually to save her nephew.
I don't know that she would have, like, the power. But, hey. I have no idea.
Oh, we don't know at all. Anything.
No.
The entity confirmed itself as Aunt Tilly, but they soon learned the acts of deception that something of great darkness can commit.
Yup.
The family had a priest from St. Louis come to bless the boy, and though it granted the family some relief for the night, it didn't stop the activity from coming back in full force the following day. Father Bishop returned on several more occasions to bless Roland, his space, and pray over him. He brought along with him several other priests he knew and worked with, hoping that they would be able to rid the boy of this attachment. After much deliberation, they were granted permission from the Archbishop on March 16th to read the prayers of exorcism for the boy and his family. They believed that what they were dealing with was not Aunt Tilly. In fact, it wasn't anyone who had ever lived here on Earth. They believed they were battling a demon.
Yup. And I agree.
I think I do too. On the first night of exorcism, scratch marks and bright red branding began to appear all over his body as the priests read their prayers. The word hell was carved into his chest without him moving, and an X carved into his skin.
Oh my God.
He displayed strength beyond his means as he tried to fight off the priests as they recited prayers to St. Michael. This was the first time Roland displayed any form of violence. After a couple of hours, Roland began to shout threats of violence, and it took 2 grown men to hold him down. By the end of the first night, the priests knew they were in for a fight.
Well.
So before they started doing any of the exorcisms, all the things seemed to just be happening to Roland.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as the exorcism starts, he started becoming violent and, like, screaming and spitting and, you know, doing all the freaky stuff, the movie-like stuff. The exorcisms lasted for days. His bed shaking during prayers, Roland fighting and needing 3 or more men to hold him down. He was spitting and screaming when splashed with holy water. And he would be conscious and lucid for short intervals, not remembering anything that went on while he was in his trance-like state. They often called it a spell. They would say he was under a spell or in a spell.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it's
Imagine
really
how
awful.
Scary that must be.
For his, like, mom and dad.
Or for him.
Yeah.
Like, whenever he's conscious for a couple minutes, like, someone telling you that you did that.
Yeah, that's frightening.
It's really scary.
It's awful.
There's nothing you can do, like, you as, like, the person.
Yeah, your body's just completely taken over.
That's really scary.
He would snarl and snap at the priests and those assisting, biting a few, actually, coming to contact. As the days went on and the exorcisms continued, Roland's behavior became worse. He began cursing at the priests, yelling vulgarities, and claimed to see a large black vapor pass in front of him as one of the long nights of exorcism came to an end. And he said he saw a figure in black robes walking out of the cloud.
Oh, that just gave me, like, chills a little bit. That's kind of scary.
Spooky. After 5 straight nights of exorcisms, things were becoming too intense for the family. All of Roland's aunts, uncles, and cousins who were there for support weren't getting any sleep and were afraid for his safety and theirs.
I was about to say, and their own.
On March 21st, the family and the priests agreed that it would be best to take Roland out of the house and found him a room at the Alexian Brothers Hospital. The hospital had a room that was far enough away from other patients, so Roland wouldn't be able to disturb anyone during his spells. And there were beds with comfortable restraints so that they would be able to keep him from hurting himself and others without causing harm to him during the rite. He was given one exorcism while in the hospital and then was taken to the college church rectory nearby where his father would be able to stay the night with him because no one was able to stay with him at the hospital. While at the rectory, he was becoming more and more vulgar and violent, breaking one man's nose and causing another to bleed.
Oh my God.
He was said to have struck the two men with such speed and accuracy, all while his eyes were tightly shut. So just his eyes closed, body convulsing, and he just like boom, boom, hit them like dead on. He would threaten the priests performing the exorcisms on him, telling a couple that they would die horrendous deaths and that he could see their spirits in hell.
Honestly, they're strong. Because
you have to be strong, really, really strong in faith to perform an exorcism.
if a normal person, like not even a scary person or someone that was like experiencing something like that, said that to me, I would be so scared.
I know.
Oh my God. Oh,
I'm just picturing someone random walking
on the
to you on the
street,
street and
yeah.
just being like, I saw you in hell. Like, no thanks.
That just freaked me out more than you even know.
I'm sorry. Kind of, not really. I like freaking you out.
I know.
It's
I
kind
like
of fun.
I like when these episodes are scary, but my stomach kind of hurts.
I'm sorry. At 2 a.m. on the 24th, after an hours-long exorcism and fighting with Roland Doe, in the middle of one of his trances, he smiled at the head priest, telling that they would all stay with him until the end, and with a coy tone remarked, "You like to stay with me. Well, I like it too."
Oh my God.
I thought that was just extra creepy. Like, he didn't say anything really scary, but that, I had to put that quote in
smile.
here, just like, you like being here with me. It's like,
The smile.
oh, yeah.
I know. I don't like it. I'm scared.
Things seemed to have calmed after a grueling exorcism on the night of Friday, March 25th, and he didn't experience any spells through Wednesday. The family believed things may be going back to normal, and he was now staying back with his family. But on March 31st, it all started up again. He began to feel sick, and at around 11:30 that night, his trance began again, with the bed shaking and his body contorting. He was talking and writing on the headboard of his bed, almost like automatic writing, like he was in a trance. He was writing things like, "I will stay 10 days, but will return in 4 days. If you stay and become a Catholic, it will stay away. And God will take it away 4 days after it has gone 10 days. It's just kind of like weird things. Also, God is getting powerful. The last day, when it quits, it will leave a sign on my front. And Father Bishop, all people that mingle with me will die a terrible death.
Oh.
I am the devil himself. You may not believe me, then Roland will suffer forever."
Oh my God.
The entity or whatever him would refuse to speak in Latin and would mock them and laugh at them and say that he speaks the language of the people, whatever that means. And he seemed to understand them, but would refuse to speak in Latin back.
Why?
I don't know.
Because normally you see them like they'll speak
Speaking in other languages.
Yeah.
That's what the diary said anyway. There were some reports saying that he was speaking in other languages, but the diary said that he wouldn't speak in Latin.
This is freaking me out.
They, including Roland and his family, decided then that the next day, April 1st, Roland would be baptized as a Catholic after all the things that he was writing. Well, on the way to the baptism, Roland once again fell into a trance. He typically didn't have any outbursts unless they were actively performing the rite of exorcism, but the dark entity within him knew what they were doing. As soon as he was taken over by the spell, the radio quit working, and from his seat in the front, he shouted, "So you're going to baptize me? Ha ha. And you think you will drive me out with Holy Communion? Ha." Roland, by direction of his possession, grabbed the steering wheel and pulled into the direction of oncoming traffic. His father and uncle were able to restrain him, and they were safely pulled over to the side of the road when they pulled Roland to the back seat to continue on, and they were like, "We have to get him to the church." The whole way to the church, Roland would reach up to the front seat and once even grabbed his aunt while driving, like by the neck. The radio remained in an inoperable state the entire time Roland remained in the trance. So it was working perfectly fine, and as soon as he entered his spell and trance, the radio was just going crazy and wouldn't work.
Oh, I'm freaked out.
Well, the baptism was another fight, as you can imagine. Roland fought and screamed out the entire way as his family guided him from the car to the church doors. I just imagined being a bystander walking by the church and seeing this kid like screaming and contorting his body as they're carrying him, like dragging him into the church.
Like trying to bathe a cat.
Yeah.
Just like,
that's so awful. I don't know what I would do.
oh my God. I don't know, but like I'm getting a real clear mental image of all this and I'm freaked out.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
No.
Once they were inside, he cursed and screamed through the baptism, making it nearly impossible for the priest to perform. The priest had to ask him over and over and over again if he renounced Satan, as Roland could not speak the words aloud. Then, with great effort and force on Roland's part, after several minutes, he said, "I do renounce him," before falling back into convulsions. The next day, it took them hours of fighting before Roland was able to take his first Holy Communion, and exorcisms resumed that night. The priest remarked that the communion seemed to stir up the demon within because of the immense struggle that they had all night that night. Roland continued on in his spells every night for the next few nights, terrorizing his family, spitting at and fighting with the priests and bystanders, and exhibiting extreme strength. It was decided that the family would return to their home in Maryland on April 4th, and a couple of the priests accompanied them on their trip. By this point, the dad had kind of missed a lot of work, and they just didn't feel like they were getting very far and thought maybe they could continue on with a Catholic church near their home rather than staying in St. Louis any longer. This return to his home, though, did not last long, and he was eventually transported back to the Election Brothers Hospital in St. Louis because nowhere around in Maryland and surrounding area had a place for him, really.
Yeah.
Or wanted to take him.
Yeah.
He returned to St. Louis on April 10th, and the days leading up to this mostly containing the same events every night. So they just continued exorcisms, and Roland would scream obscenities and mime inappropriate gestures. He would scratch at his own body, and there were several instances of words and numbers being branded into his own flesh when he was not able to have done so. It was constant. Often, they would appear under his clothes or under the sheet that he had over his body, so it wasn't like he couldn't have done it.
Oh my God.
On the 11th, during their prayers of exorcism, the word exit appeared on Roland's body. And around midnight, when they attempted to give him a communion, the word hell appeared on his body in bloody scratches again.
I don't like that at all.
On April 13th, the demon spoke through Roland and said that God had commanded him to leave at 11 o'clock that night, but he wouldn't leave without a struggle. This night, he seemed to be stronger and louder than any night before, and he put up a great fight, mocked the priests in pig Latin, and threatened them all and continued with his grotesque language. The devil lied and did not leave at 11 p.m., actually. And the priest just continued to pray round the clock for Roland. After midnight on Thursday the 13th, the activity stopped, and there weren't any more incidents on the 14th, 15th, or 16th.
Was it the 4-day thing?
Yeah. Oh! April 17th was Easter Sunday, and Roland started up again late that night. So it was 4 days. He was unable to take Holy Communion and fell into his trance several times throughout the day and night. He eventually retired to his room without further incident, and possibly because the demon was saving its energy for the fight that it would be having the following night.
So he would be normal sometimes? Like he'd just be his normal self?
Most of the time he would just be normal, just very tired and anxious, but normal, and would have conversations and
they could tell him what was going on.
Yeah. But when they were doing the exorcisms, he was not.
Yeah, obviously.
And then really, like on Easter Sunday, he was going in and out of it, even though they weren't even doing an exorcism.
Yeah, so with things like that, like how do they just send him to his room and be like, okay, go to bed?
I think people were sleeping with him
24/7.
I think there was someone with him.
I don't know. Even then, I'd be like, hey, I hope you understand. Now give me your arm so I can restrain you. Yeah,
I know.
Serious.
I wouldn't want him roaming the house at night.
No, I get that image of the Exorcism of Emily Rose where she's like running around, like eating spiders and stuff. That movie freaked me out.
That just got me.
Yeah.
That movie really did scare me too. I think we were a little too young to have watched that.
I definitely was too young to watch that.
On to the last night, Monday, April 18th, 1949. This seemed to be the worst day of all for Roland. His fits began immediately upon waking at 8 a.m., which usually it didn't start happening until late that night. He kicked and screamed at the clergymen around him. He smashed a bottle of holy water and was once again unable to take communion. When the demon within him spoke out, he has to say one more word, one little word. I mean, one big word. He'll never say it. He has to take 9 communions. He'll never say that word. I am always in him. I may not have much power always, but I am in him. He will never say that word. I assume the word is God.
Oh.
It didn't say, though.
Okay, I was like, did I miss something?
No, the ramblings of the demon within him.
Okay.
He remained in an agitated and aggressive state for almost the entire day, fighting and cursing with anyone who tried to help him. His strength seemed amplified on this day, and the priests kept relics and holy medals around him constantly. And as the day wore on, Roland seemed to become fatigued and was actually able to recite some of the prayers back to the priests in Latin, something the demon had refused to do throughout the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Which all of this makes sense because they say that when you're nearing the end of an exorcism, like when you're getting close to casting out the demons, that's when they get stronger. It's kind of like a their last efforts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Giving all they've got before they're cast out.
Yeah.
So it all made sense to me anyway. The prayers continued throughout the day and that afternoon, and Roland claimed that each time he would fall into a trance, it was becoming lighter and lighter. And at 10:45 that night, while Roland was in a trance, he suddenly laid calm, and from his mouth, in, quote, clear, commanding tones and with dignity, a voice broke into prayer, saying aloud, Satan, Satan, I am Saint Michael, and I command you, Satan, and the other evil spirits to leave the body in the name of Dominus, immediately, now, now, now. Then began the most violent contortions of the exorcism since they began on 16th of March. This went on for almost 10 minutes straight, and suddenly Roland's body was calm, and he said, he's gone. And Roland seemed as if he was back to normal, albeit exhausted.
I'm sorry. I don't think I could ever, like, trust him.
Ever again?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like...
Because they're deceivers. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. I have a quote here of what what Roland relates to the priest of what he envisioned while all of that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, I don't know. They called him R in the report too, in the diary. So R now explained what he saw. He said there was a brilliant white light, and in the light stood a very beautiful man with flowing, wavy hair that blew in the breeze. He wore a white robe that fitted closely to his body. The material gave the impression of scales. Only the upper half of the body of this man was visible to R. In his right hand, he held up a wavy and fiery sword in front of him. With his left hand, he pointed down to a pit or a cave. R said he saw the devil standing in the cave, and R felt the heat coming from the cave and saw the flames. First, the devil fought, resisting the angel and laughing diabolically. Then the angel smiled at R and spoke, but R heard only the word Dominus. As the angel spoke, the devil and about 10 of his helpers ran back into the fire of the cave or pit, and after the devil disappeared, the letter Spite appeared on the bars of the cave. As the devils disappeared into the pit, R felt a pulling or tugging in the region of his stomach, and as the devils disappeared, he felt a snapping and then felt relaxed completely. He said that this was the most relaxed feeling he had since the whole experience began in January.
I don't like the stomach feeling. That made me that made me feel sick.
They were like being pulled out of his body.
Oh, that's nasty. Yeah.
Because I think we said this in the Exorcism episode, that the priests say that they often will come from a point in the body, or they'll enter at a point in the body and then they'll.
Oh,
come
yeah.
from,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. It took me a second.
So there are many people who believed then and still believe today that Roland Doe was nothing more than a young, disturbed boy who was possibly stricken with grief and just looking for attention, really.
Possibly.
Though some of the things he is claimed to have done seem a bit far-fetched for him to have done all on his own without any paranormal interventions, like writing words on his back.
True. Very true.
I can see why there's much skepticism around it. Because, I mean, it's a little outlandish. It's a little wild. But one thing is for certain, though. Whether the accounts are completely true or reliable, or not, the story of Roland Doe's exorcism inspired a story that changed American culture and impacted the genre of horror forever. True. William Peter Blatty was introduced to the story of Roland Doe's exorcism while taking a college course as a senior at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. His professor, who was also a priest, told Blatty of the exorcism, showing him the Washington Post report, and he eventually got his hands on the diary of one of the priests attending the exorcism. I believe it's the one that I read also. He knew almost immediately that writing a book inspired by the true events of Roland Doe's exorcism was something that he needed to do. And nearly 20 years later, in 1971, his book, The Exorcist, was published. The book made the New York Times bestseller list 57 weeks in a row, with 17 of those weeks at number 1.
Whoa, okay, wow.
Super popular.
Yeah. Wow, what an accomplishment. That's crazy.
In 1973, a film adaptation was created, and it took the world by storm. The book and film are only loosely based on Roland Doe's experiences, featuring an 11-year-old girl named Reagan rather than a 14-year-old boy, and ending with tragic deaths of the priests rather than just the saving of a child from possession. So, I mean...
Gotta make it.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Spicy for the movies.
She still had the same tantrums of shouting and scratching, but she also had a moment where her head spins 360 and spewed out like pea soup everywhere. Like, typical when you think of it.
Yeah.
The movie is honestly pretty gruesome, actually, and I can understand why there were so many people supposedly fainting, vomiting, or running out of the theaters when it was released. There were also some reports of people running to the screen with rosaries. Like, freaked out, scared.
Come on.
Many theaters had ambulances standing by while showing the film, and in 1975, the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease published a paper by a psychiatrist documenting 4 cases of cinematic neurosis triggered by the film.
What does that even mean?
Just like chronic anxiety, I think, brought on by the film.
The movies.
Yeah.
Get a grip.
It was a different time. That kind of stuff wasn't on every screen 24/7 like it is now.
True, but like, you're at the theater. You purchased a ticket. You know,
especially at the beginning
movie.
when it's like based on a true story or like inspired by a true story.
Yeah. I'm thinking about like when Paranormal Activity came out, how a lot of people thought that was real.
Oh my gosh.
I kind of did too.
Same with Blair Witch Project.
I heard that the Blair Witch, which I could be lying, I don't have sources, but the actors were actually like terrified because they thought they were on like some like project to actually
so
find.
It's like a whole social experiment.
Yeah.
That's creepy. I need to look
actually
into that.
look that up. I did think that movie was real.
The Blair Witch Project?
I did.
Creepy.
I
It looks
did.
like lost footage or found footage.
I did think that was real. And Paranormal Activity, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. There were also many who believed the movie was so intense that it should have been given an X rating rather than an R rating, and it was released in theaters. Several cities attempted to ban the movie from being shown in their theaters to keep their children from seeing it. And it caused a resurgence in fear and requests for exorcisms.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah. There are some sources who said that there was also a rise in the number of people who converted to and started attending a Catholic church in the years following the release of the novel.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
One of the priests who kind of helped was part of like the research on the movie or the book in the movie, said that he had many people calling him like, I think my dad is possessed. I think my brother's possessed. Like, can you help us? It's like, it's probably not.
Yeah, no.
It's probably just shit.
They just have the flu. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So the movie was a huge success, grossing $1.9 million in its first week, which is about $13 million in today's dollars.
I was about to say in the 70s.
And it was released limited, like very limited to like, I think only 20 theaters or something like that across the nation, 26 theaters across the nation. And there was so much hype that it was just like,
saw it.
Well, they released it in more theaters.
Okay.
But the first week or so, it was only released in a limited amount of theaters.
That's crazy.
And at the end of its theatrical run, it grossed $193 million. It broke records for nearly every theater it was originally released in, and its box office records stood for years following. Whoa. It was the top grossing R-rated film for nearly 50 years and wasn't beat out of its title for highest grossing supernatural film until the release of The Sixth Sense in 1999.
Oh,
so it held its title for
that's crazy.
A long time. In 2010, the Library of Congress selected the film for preservation in the United States National Film Registry as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant.
That's amazing.
It was a phenomenon.
Imagine being like the actor or the actress in the movie. Like,
well, some stuff went down.
Oh, I've heard that before, but I don't know all the details.
Being about such a cursed subject, it's no wonder that the making of the film is rumored to have been cursed as well. Because of the difficulty working with the director, William Friedkin, many people said he was just a nightmare to work with. He just reshooting tons and tons of scenes that were already really difficult for them to set up and get. And he's like, nah, let's go again like a few days later.
Ew.
It was a lot. Many production problems and accidents on sets. The film took over 200 days to film when it was scheduled for only 85.
200 days?
Yeah. It went $2.5 million over budget, which is $17 million today. And the initial delay to shooting was caused when a bird flew into a circuit breaker and caused the fire to destroy nearly every set in the home except for Reagan's room.
Oh, that's scary.
So like within the first few days of shooting, just everything caught fire. Except for her room. Yeah.
I don't like that.
It set production back 6 weeks. Ellen Burstyn, who played Reagan's mother, suffered a debilitating back injury when she was thrown backwards in a scene. That scene is in the movie. They used that scene. She fractured her coccyx and was unable to film for 2 weeks and was on crutches for the rest of the shoot. It left her with chronic pain too, which is really sad.
Oh, that is sad.
Linda Blair, who played Reagan, fractured her lower spine while filming and developed scoliosis and still has the effects on her health today because of it. I'm pretty sure that scene is still in the movie. I think they used that scene of her literally fracturing her spine. Many other freak accidents occurred to the cast and crew while filming. A carpenter working on building the set cut his thumb completely off, and a lighting technician lost a toe in another accident. There were also several deaths of people connected to the work on The Exorcist as well. Jack McGowan, who played director Burke Dennings, passed away just a week after he finished filming for the movie. The actress who played Father Damien Caress's late mother, Maria, passed before the film was completed as well. Aww. There were several other deaths, including one of the night watchmen, the operator of the refrigeration system used in Reagan's room, and an assistant cameraman's newborn child. Linda Blair's grandfather passed. Max von Sydow, I think is how you say his name. He played Father Marin. His brother passed away. And one of Jason Miller's, who played Father Karras, his son almost passed after being hit by a motorcycle.
Oh my God.
Director
Cursed.
Cursed. A lot of horrible things.
God, I hate that.
Director William Friedkin is among the many who believe that there was some supernatural interference with the making and subsequent release of the film.
You don't say.
In an interview with horror film magazine Castle of Frankenstein, he was quoted as saying, "I'm not a convert to the occult, but after all I've seen on this film, I definitely believe in demonic possession. We were plagued by strange and sinister things from the beginning." And the man who was kind of the head of the special effects team said he felt that he was playing around with something he shouldn't have been playing around with. And Friedkin asked Father Birmingham, who was working on the film as a technical advisor, the same one that received all the phone calls after the release of the film, he asked him to perform an exorcism to the set because things just weren't vibing.
Yeah.
And Birmingham did end up blessing the cast and crew instead, so as not to make everyone working on the film feel more anxious than they already were. So he did a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't help them that much.
It would help my mind for the moment, though.
Now, there were some people who said that they were just kind of playing up some of the things. And of course, when you're filming for 200 days with lots of cast and crew, things are going to happen.
Yeah. And you it's fun to be like, ooh, this happened. That's scary.
And it kind of adds lore to the movie and makes people like, oh, did you hear all the things happening at the filming The Exorcist? Maybe we should go watch it.
But I believe it.
I believe it.
I don't know. I kind of do.
It's just cursed. It just feels cursed. You need to watch it.
I know.
Or read it or something.
I know. I don't want to read it. I want to watch it.
You need to.
Yeah. If I read it, I feel like I'm going to get really scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually get more scared when I'm reading than I am watching a movie.
Because my brain makes up the image. I'd rather just see it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
After Roland Doe's exorcism, he and his family returned home to Maryland and all converted to Catholicism.
Period.
It is rumored that the hospital room he was exorcised in at Election Brothers Hospital was sealed up and never used again. The facility was torn down in 1978, so can't confirm. The family home in St. Louis has since become somewhat of a tourist attraction. You can look up the address. I'm not going to say it on here because that might be for someone's home, but you can find it. There was a vacant lot in Mount Rainier, Maryland, that locals believed in the 80s to belong to Roland Doe, and teens would flock to the area hoping to see paranormal activity and lighting candles, doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't his home. Though steps were taken to hide Roland Doe's identity, it was eventually discovered and published years after his case. Roland Doe from Mount Rainier, Maryland, was actually Ronald Hunkler from Cottage City, which is a nearby town. He went on to live a normal life, graduating from a nearby high school, and eventually made his way as an engineer at NASA. He worked on the Apollo space missions in the 60s.
Whoa.
He was a smart guy.
Okay.
He lived his life with worry that his coworkers and friends would find out that he was the boy who inspired The Exorcist.
That is so crazy.
Just knowing that you are behind this cultural phenomenon.
I didn't even think about that. Oh my God. And because he was alive, when the movie came out.
Yeah, just living life. He retired from NASA in 2001 and lived a fairly quiet life in Marriottsville, Maryland, until he passed from a stroke at 86. A companion of his, who remained nameless, told the New York Post, "On Halloween, we always left the house because he figured someone would come to his residence and know where he lived and never let him have peace." She claimed that he concocted the entire possession, but right before his passing, one final inexplicable event occurred in his life. So she said that he told her that he made it all up and he was just a troubled boy.
Well, I would say that too.
To anyone, yeah. Definitely didn't happen. Before he passed, a priest showed up to his home uninvited and unannounced to perform last rites. His companion said, "I have no idea how the father knew to come, but he got Ron to heaven. Ron's in heaven and he's with God now."
Aw, I thought you were about to say something scary. I was bracing myself.
No, not scary. Good ending. But the priest just intuitively knew to come perform the last rites on Ron.
Fishy.
Okay, so I'm going to say something that's really spooky. What if the priest was there to perform last rites, but it has a connection to his demon that was within him before? And the priest was maybe not really a priest or was called on by something else, something darker.
What do you mean?
Like, it wasn't God who told him to come perform last rites. It was the devil. And he didn't perform last rites. He was doing something else, like, dark.
Hey, you know what? I reject that.
I rebuke you.
I reject that idea. And he
was saved. He was fine.
Yes.
No, I believe he went to heaven.
I don't like
it. Was just a spooky, scary movie thought that I had in my head.
No.
When I read that first.
I don't like it. I reject that idea, and I think that
he
had a happy ending. A happy ending? A happy ending.
I like to think that too. I believe it too. But still a crazy life to live.
Wow.
And an awful
possession.
Several months at the age of
NASA,
14.
Movie.
It's really sad to me that he lived the rest of his life kind of afraid that everyone would find out who he was.
Yeah.
Or like he was afraid that people would show up to his house on Halloween because
they would.
Yeah. If they found out. But no one knew who he was really until way, way later in life.
Good. He got his piece.
I think people knew who he was. There were a few people who had uncovered and found out who he was, but they didn't really say anything until later.
How do you find that out in the 70s?
Talking to people. You got to go back and see, well, this person was there. Let's talk to this person, that person.
True. Okay, true. Scary, but like it took away the scary because he just had a happy little normal life after.
I know. I'm glad. Like, I needed to end on a happy note.
No, I'm glad. I'm not saying like, oh, I wish it would have been tragic, but ending on a smooth note, like it was a journey. I was very scared in the middle, but now I feel okay.
Yeah. I felt we needed a good happy ending.
I agree.
Because this really scared me, honestly.
No, me too.
Reading the diary is what really scared me. And it wasn't even like super descriptive, like written like a novel or anything. It was just stating facts. Like, on this day, this happened.
That's worse.
He was saying this, and I was just like,
yeah. Oh,
really freaking.
That's really scary.
We really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Let us know if you've ever heard of the story or if there are any other exorcisms you'd like for us to cover. Or interesting movies about exorcisms that maybe have a story behind it, because I'm interested.
I am too.
Maybe not immediately,
but
soon.
Yeah.
Don't forget to rate and review if you're listening on podcast, and like, subscribe, comment, everything. Help us in the algorithm if you're on YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ghosteas Pod. If you have a story of your own that you'd like to share with us, anything, literally anything paranormal, supernatural, go ahead and email it to us at ghosteaspod@gmail.com. We'd love to read it on a future episode. And, our little side quest. If you have made it this far, we posted it. It's out there into the ether. If you want to watch it, watch it. If you don't, ignore this. We'll link it in the, it's on YouTube only, and we'll link it in the description. So,
yep.
It's there for you. It is totally non-scripted, non-planned.
Nonsense.
So,
yeah.
If you want to see how our brains work a little bit, you can go over there.
It's a little bit scary.
But we're so excited to be going on this adventure with you guys, and we will see you next Monday.
Goodbye.